I'm Judge Kadlic, the Reno City Attorney, and this is Reno Periscope, a look at topics of interest here in the city of Reno. This is going to be the fourth in a series of shows we've done on the topic of driving under the influence. In our first show, we did a DUI arrest from the actual stop by the officer through the field sobriety test, the breath test, and the final booking into jail. In the second show, we did a mini DUI trial with a prosecuting attorney, a defense attorney in front of the judge with witnesses, and then later had a conversation with the judge and the attorneys regarding the topic of driving under the influence. Our third show, we dealt with the DUI penalties, as well as the effects on your insurance as a result of getting a DUI. From that, we're into the fourth show. In the fourth show, we're going to cover one topic, which is the penalty you get requiring you to attend the Victim Impact Panel, because that is something that is very important to understand from the perspective of what has happened to people as a result of drunk drivers. And my guest today is John Hartman, who actively participates in the Victim Impact Panel, and he's going to tell us about the Victim Impact Panel and about his story as well. Now, first of all, Mr. Hartman, I'm going to have to put on my glasses in order to read my questions. One of the things about getting a little bit older, you need reading glasses. Mr. Hartman, could you explain to us the purpose of the Victim Impact Panel, why it exists, and who attends it?
The Victim Impact Panel is a panel that is comprised of victims and survivors of intoxicated drivers. We are a volunteer organization that speaks to convicted offenders who have been sentenced for driving under the influence. And our main purpose is to show a different side of a DUI, not the criminal, not the fines and fees, but the impact that an intoxicated driver has on other people in the community.
And how often is the Victim Impact Panel held? When and where is it held? And how long do the meetings normally last?
We have a panel approximately, actually we have a panel every month, but we also do additional panels when we have an overflow. The panel is held at the Reno Council Chambers on 9th Street, and it lasts about an hour and a half, sometimes a little more.
And what does it cost to attend the Victim Impact Panel? I assume there is a fee.
There is a fee. The Victim Impact Panel is part of the sentence that everybody who is convicted for a drug or alcohol related offense is sentenced to. The fee is $30.
Is that something they pay at the door?
Correct. They pay $30 in cash or money order.
And what is the money used for that you collect for the Victim Impact Panel?
The Northern Nevada DUI Task Force uses the money that is collected, and all of the money. It is a volunteer organization, non-profit. The money is used to fund extra programs in the community, such as saturation patrols. We help to assist the cost of that. We pay for computers that go into the patrol cars, extra breathalyzer units for the officers. We pay for programs like the big drinking holidays, typically St. Patrick's Day, New Year's, some of those events. We pay for bus rides, help to assist with taxis, tipsy tow programs. It's used in the community to help benefit the community by removing the possibilities of other drunk drivers.
And this is held at the Washoe County Commission Chambers. So on an average month, how many people are in attendance?
At the council chambers, we can hold approximately 265 people. We have folding chairs, and that gets us about 280 people every month. Unfortunately, we are seeing such an increase in this now. We're turning approximately 80 to 100 people away every month, and we will be moving to a larger location in October.
Where are you moving to, do you know?
The Lawler Event Center.
So how many will you be able to accommodate there?
Approximately 500.
And if a person wanted to bring a guest that is perhaps another family member or someone who has perhaps alcohol issues, can they do that?
Right now, because of the capacity and the limitations on our size, we are not allowing extra visitors. As we're able to, we get them in. We try to get as many people to view our panel as possible. We're always open to having visitors in there. Currently, we just don't have the space. When we move to our larger location, we will allow more visitors to attend and witness.
So once you go to Lawler, it'll be a once-a-month event?
Correct.
Now, how and why did you become involved with the Victim Impact Panel?
So first, a little bit about me. My name is John Hartman. I was born and raised here in Reno. When I was 18, I became an EMT as a result of being raised in the hospital that is now known as Reno Medical. My dad started the Care Flight program. My parents were very heavily involved in the emergency room. My mom was an emergency room nurse, so I grew up with a lot of trauma and a lot of time that I spent in the emergency room. I saw the broken bodies that were caused by drunk driving or drug-related driving. When I turned 18, I became an EMT, and I rode along with the local ambulance companies where I got to physically see the bended cars, the broken bodies, the deaths, the trauma, and I got to see it up close. When I was 18, I was driving home to my parents' house on the Mount Rose Highway, and I witnessed a car pull out of a bar that is down south end of town where the new Walmart is, and I watched it plow into the car in front of me that had a mom and 3 kids in it. As a new EMT, I got out and tried to render aid, and I held the woman's 5-year-old in my arms until he died. In my arms. When I became 21, I got into law enforcement, worked for the Washington County Sheriff's Office for a few years as a deputy, where I was exposed to the criminal side of it, i.e., pulling over, seeing you guys, arresting you, going to court, going through the trials. So pretty well-rounded. And then 6 years ago this October, I was dating this wonderful woman that we'd been together for about 7 weeks, and we decided to go for a ride on my motorcycle one day up outside of Truckee, and we met a drunk driver head-on. I spent 2.5 months of my life in ICU. I've had 27 surgeries. I have 1 more pending. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, sitting over here, has had 9. And between the 2 of us, $1.6 million in medical. So there is nothing that you guys have experienced that I haven't personally experienced. Very, very knowledgeable on this, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. Try to sit in a pain clinic watching the love of your life get an, and this is a 2-inch long needle that is 8 gauge in diameter, which is basically the size of a number 2 pencil when it's going into you. And they don't just in and give you a small injection. Is there a reason that you won't look over here? Because this is geared specifically towards you. Think about what this is like to have this stabbed into you. Because this is the only thing that gets rid of chronic pain. And they don't just stick it in and give you a little shot and take it out. They stick it in slowly to avoid all the muscles in your back and around your spine so they don't paralyze you with it. And then they inject it. And then they lift it up and they move it a little bit and they stick it back down in, and they do that 3 times in every spot. And I realize that this is a horrible imposition on your life right now. But you're here because you broke the law. And this is a result of that. This is the stuff that you guys cause to your friends, to your families, to the other drivers on the road. And there is no measure for this kind of pain. You said you had an 8-year-old. Think about watching a doctor stick something like that into your child's body so that they can stop hurting. Does that scare you? It should. It should scare the hell out of all of you. I would rather cut my foot off with a hacksaw than to sit in that pain clinic office one more time while they do that to my wife, while she screams in absolute agony, while she is literally breaking my hand while she's holding it. They gave me fentanyl. Anybody know what fentanyl is? Strongest drug on the face of the planet. 1,800 microgram fentanyl sticks. Take this. That didn't work. Gave me methadone. Anybody know what methadone is? What's it commonly used for? Heroin. Great. Ex-cop and an EMT on heroin drugs. Neat. Problem with that is that they give you, if you're a heroin addict, a trainload of it, take away the heroin, they start tapering it down. When they use it for pain control, and it is a very effective pain med, they go the other way. Now, the problem with that is methadone is the most highly addictive prescription on the planet. There is nothing more addictive when it's taken for a long period of time. They hand it out like candy at pain clinics, and these people are driving with you. Because not once did my wife or I ever get told, don't drive.
Obviously, when you speak at the Victim Impact Panel, you tell the people your story, how the drunk driver affected you. Who are some of the other speakers, and how are they chosen to speak?
We have a number of speakers on our panels. We have younger adults all the way up to elderly people that have all been touched in one way or another by drunk drivers. And some of our panel actually have been offenders in the past and have a story along that line too. What we do to screen our applicants, we have a task force board that when we have a new speaker show us interest, that they're interested in showing their story and telling their story, we review their story with the board and make sure that it's an appropriate platform, and then we will introduce them slowly into the group so that they can speak and share their tragedy with the audience.
So that could mean, as in your case, you were the actual victim of a drunk driver, but that could also mean like a family member who's lost a family member as a result of a drunk driver, or who has a family member who's been injured as a result of a drunk driver. It doesn't necessarily mean the panel speakers are all people who've been victims. They may been the family of victims. Is that correct?
Correct. We have one speaker, it's a husband and wife who lost their 18-year-old son, DJ Bernardus, to a drunk driver.
Let's talk about personal experience so we can kind of make this a little more this is what can happen to you. Our first speaker tonight is a man by the name of Don. Don has been with our panel for many years and is not quite a complete quadriplegic, but is in a wheelchair, has no function of his legs, limited function of his arms. And he will talk to you about his story and how he became involved in this.
How many of you know somebody in a wheelchair? How many of you want to be in a wheelchair? I started drinking when I was 15 years old. I started breaking horses when I was 17. Started hunting when I was 12. Fishing since I was 8. My life was the mountains, around animals, ranches, worked at pack stations. I know the Sierras like the back of my hand. Been into every little lake you can imagine. Even lakes with not even on the map I've been. By the time I was 11th grade in high school, I was out of control, full-blown alcoholic. Liked to do my own things, didn't like school, rather go fishing, hunting, rather work. So I ended up dropping out. By the time I was 25, I lost all my friends. Family gave up on me. because all I did was work and drink. That was it. Work hard, drink hard, play hard. That was my life. Finally, moved to Winnemucca, Nevada, and then went to work in Elko to work on the third biggest ranch in Nevada, about 4.5 million acres. It was the best job I ever had in my life because you can't grow alcohol on trees, and you can't find drugs out in the middle of nowhere. I was into pie at first, and I got into heavy with cocaine and crank. And rich man drug, and I wasn't that rich, so I had no money. I was pretty well strapped all the time. But because I was up in line shacks and cabins and up by myself working on fences and working with cows, I was able to sober myself up, get off the drugs, and realized I knew what I wanted to do in life. And that'd just be a full-time cowboy, make a little bit of money, work hard, but have a good life. On the night of July 3rd, 1991, my life would change forever. My brother and his 3-year-old daughter came by the ranch so we could go to his house to spend the 4th of July, watch a parade, hang out together, watch the fireworks. It was going to be a good weekend planned. I spoke with my brother for about 1.5 years because of all the stuff I was into, and we kind of had it out. So it was a good make-up time. But when he picked me up, he probably drank a 6-pack on the way there. Probably had another 4 beers as we stopped by this lake so my niece could fish and play in the water and we could catch up. He offered me a beer. I drank about a half one. I don't know if any of you ever stop drinking and then try to drink again. It's the first taste of beer, it kind of makes you sick to your stomach. You got to get used to that taste again. So I had a half beer and threw it away. Well, he drank another couple more beers. And we were off. Jump in the truck. Because I used to work 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day, I was pretty tired. And I fell asleep. I heard my brother yelling, "Hold on." Truck with fish tanks from one side of the road to the other. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was halfway through the passenger window. I wanted to go get help. I wanted to get out, see if my niece was okay, see if my brother was okay. I tried to move my hands, and they wouldn't move. I tried to move my legs, and they wouldn't move. I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? I asked God to help. And then I heard my niece crying for her daddy. And I calmed her down and said her daddy was coming. My brother finally got to the truck, and he broke his hand trying to break the window so he could get into the window so he could pull her out. Then he came to my side and wanted to pull me out. I said, no, my neck's broken. So I told him to go get help. And they went. Luckily for us, a car came by and they went and got help. When the ambulance got there, the paramedics, they forgot one important part of the equipment, a neck collar, because we're way out in the middle of nowhere outside of Battle Mountain. The only one that had it would have been the ambulance, and they already used it with their next patient before me and forgot it at the hospital. They had to roll 2 towels up, put them on either side of my neck, fireman had to put his hands around my neck, the towels, and then they duct taped his hands. Then they cut me out of the truck and got me to the ambulance. When I got to the hospital, Battle Mountain, I laid on the table and doctor asked me if I could move my fingers. I couldn't move them. Asked me to raise my arms. I just laid there. Asked me to wiggle my toes, raise my legs. I couldn't move nothing. I just laid there. They took a sharp instrument and started poking me from my toes all the way up to my chest. And finally, up above my nipple line, I was able to feel. They finally, they gave me x-rays, came back and said my neck's broken. They had to fly me to Reno. I cracked my head open pretty good. Had like 16 stitches and 20 staples. Got to when they flew me, I went into the airplane. The nurse there asked me about how I was and if I was comfortable. I said, yeah. I asked her if I would ever walk again. She couldn't answer me. She just held my hand. And I couldn't even feel it. I couldn't even feel her hold my hand. When we got to the hospital, they gave me x-rays, more tests, and came back and said I shattered my vertebrae, the fourth and fifth, which I was 2 away from being a Christopher Reed. I went through surgery. Result, 2 steel plates, piece of my hip bone, and 4 screws to keep my spine together. The doctor and surgeon told me I'll never walk again. I will never have control of my bowels or my bladder. Most likely, I'll probably end up in a nursing home for the rest of my life, having someone feed me. I went to rehab and work, and by luck, I was able to get a little bit more back. I was able to do so much on my own. They taught me how to teach people how to dress me, how to give me a shower, how to take care of my personal care. I live on my own, have my own apartment. I do pretty good. I had to have someone come in, get me up in the morning, give me a shower, help me with my bowels and bladder, and then put me to bed at night. If they don't show up, then I gotta wait till somebody show up to put me to bed. I've been left up all night before. I've been left in bed all day before. And it happens all the time. I rely on people to help me every day of my life. I was able to learn how to do certain things. I can feed myself, pick some things up. I was able to get the Reno Rodeo Association bought me a saddle so I can get back on a horse again. But I had to have someone help me get on this horse. Then they had to Velcro me in the saddle, strap me in. I can barely ride, but it's still pleasurable. I enjoy it. I've been water skiing, snow skiing. I have scuba dive. I keep myself pretty busy. But imagine you have to have someone every day of your life to rely on. For a little bit of independence, I had to rely on somebody. I want you to think about when you're back out and you leave this program. And I'm not sure what the percentage is, but there's a percentage of you who will be back out there drinking and driving and doing the same thing again. And while you're doing that, I want you to think about this. As you're driving, hammered or high, you look at that person next to you, your best friend, your wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, your child. Look behind you in that child seat, that little baby, innocent baby, that child who is helpless, who rely on you to help that child because their independence belongs to you. And as you go around that corner, you take a good look at me and you take a good listen to the other speakers, and then your vehicle wreck. And this is what's going to happen, not you. The percentage is you're going to be fine. But then you get to understand what my brother lives with every day of his life. What he done to his little brother. It will never go away. I will never walk. I don't care what the government says about this or this and this. I will never walk. There's no cure. There's no cure for spinal cord. You look around the malls and around. There's a lot of people out there in wheelchairs, just like me. And you know most spinal cords are because of drugs and alcohol. Driving, either vehicles, motorcycles, or diving, because they're high or they're drunk. And that's a fact. All I ask you, please, take this program serious. Take a good look at me and listen to the other speakers, because you don't want to ever have to live what I do every day. Thank you.
First of all, I always like to look around the audience, because after all, we're experts at this, you know. It's your first time here, son? Been here before? You've seen us before, probably. So we've only done this a little over 100 times, looking at someone just like you and you. And always, I'm interested to know who doesn't really give a damn. You? How about you? You? How about you? Feel like Superman? Think you could stop that car? So do I. See what it did to that Jeep? We got a lot in common. You and I. All of you. You don't want to be here tonight, but you got to be. You don't want to be, but you got to be. You too. We don't want to be here tonight. We got to be. We got a message for you. If you pay attention, it could save your life. It could save you from the cemetery. Ever think about that? Probably not when you were having that drink. No, John said, get to know your neighbor. What you were getting to know was a potential killer. You think that with your pistol you could do that kind of damage? You know, the challenge we have is trying to get you to pay attention and care. I mean, you live in a land of freedom. You got men overseas getting killed to give you your freedoms of choice. And what right do you think that you can conduct yourself in such a way that you could kill yourself or somebody else? Does that ever occur to you? Or do you even give a damn? How about you? You care? You care? Because if you don't, I got a great solution for you. Do you care, son? How about you folks? You think this is a waste of time? You think we get up here and go through this? How about you? You getting the message, son? Sorry. Me too. No. But for those of you who don't care, I understand the U.S. Army is looking for a few good people, men and women. You know what? They'll train you to kill. They're going to give you a gun, then you're going to send your rear end overseas. But the difference is, when you get overseas, the person that you're going to be coming up against is going to have a gun too. And he's going to want to kill you. And you, or any of the rest of you that really don't give a damn. So I'd suggest in the morning, call up the U.S. Army and get with it. And get the hell off our streets when you've got the weapon at the bottom of your foot. Why don't you try that if you don't give a damn? It's a license to drive, folks. It's not a license to kill. And I'll tell you something. You may not make it home tonight. You know that? What'd John tell you? Only getting about 10% of them. 250 of you in here tonight, that's 2,500 out there. Or someday, you might be up here. You might be speaking in my place. And you lose somebody in your family. Or maybe you'd be in prison because you killed somebody. How about you? Big man there. No, don't look around. I'm talking to you in the gray. You give a damn? It's a waste of time? I hope we don't see you here again.
To get to the Victim Impact Panel, I assume some people drive even though their license has been suspended as a result of driving under the influence. What happens to people who may drive to the Victim Impact Panel after their license has been suspended?
Unfortunately, it happens very, very frequently. We have law enforcement staff that sit in the parking lot and surrounding areas, and anybody who comes into the panel or the surrounding areas has their driver's license and license plates checked. And when they show up driving on a suspended license, they have an additional fine and can be arrested for that as well because they're not following their court order.
So in other words, the word to the wise is to not drive yourself to the Victim Impact Panel. I believe that they tell that to people anyway, but not everybody listens to good advice. And as far as, I assume that sometimes people who come to the Victim Impact Panel may choose to more or less have a few drinks before they come. Does that happen on occasion?
It happens almost every occasion that we have a panel. Unfortunately, we deal with people who not only have had a cocktail at dinner and gotten arrested for driving, but also people who have some problems and have an ongoing addiction problem and are unable to come to the panel sober. And when they do, we show them what happens when they're driving drunk. We have officers there and our staff is trained to screen the people as they come through for drug and alcohol intoxication. And we have breathalyzers that we run random checks on people, as well as anybody that we feel is under the influence.
So if someone is found to be under the influence, what happens then?
They are taken aside from the group. They are given a preliminary breath test through a breathalyzer check. If they do not pass, they are taken directly to Washoe County Jail and arrested for another alcohol-related offense.
I assume that most people that come to the Victim Impact Panel at least act civilly, but I assume that there are times that you may have people who are uncooperative. What happens then?
Unfortunately, we see a tremendous amount of the participants that are angry because they've been caught and take that out on the victims that are speaking at the panel. When we identify an individual in the audience that has acted inappropriately, they are removed from the panel.
And they have to go back and do it again?
Correct. If they are removed from, they're warned once. If they are removed from the panel because of their actions, such as mouthing off, sleeping, some of the other things that happen, they are removed. They have to go back before the judge, explain why they were removed from the panel, and then come back the following month to apologize to the panel and view the panel again.
Sir, in the green shirt, I've watched you sleep through this whole evening. I can't believe it. You listened to Dawn speaking and Cordy speaking of her daughter, and nothing of it is important to you. Do you have children? I want to introduce DJ to you. Mostly so you can get a glimpse of the kind of person he was and what he had to offer, the beautiful gift that he was to us. And to give you some sense of the change of life in the blink of an eye. This beautiful summer evening, and here we are in this room. And we're all here. There's a common thread between us. It has to do with driving, drinking, drugging, life, your life, our lives. And for those of you who are parents, I would imagine that most of you have a fairly good idea where your child is this evening. And Jim and I have an absolute where our child is. His body is our Mother of Sorrows Cemetery on North Virginia Street, buried in his homecoming suit. And I pray his soul is with the good Lord. And I feel that he is with us all the time. But it's just a thought. There's nothing physical there. And there's no voice. And the voice that we hear of DJ is on that video in his junior year. DJ was killed April 2nd, 1996 on Tuesday. And until probably about 9 months ago, I haven't been able to watch that TV interview, but I just wanted to hear his voice so badly. Deej was a senior at Bishop Manogue High School when Minogue was over this direction before they moved out on South Virginia. And he was very academically involved and sports involved and involved just with humanity. He was president of the National Honor Society. He'd been president of his classes throughout high school. He attended Boys State, a Nevada high school scholar. He was quarterback and co-captain of his football team. This is DJ in his senior year at his football banquet. And this is the end of DJ's life on the freeway not very far from here. DJ was accepted to the University of Notre Dame, and as the video said, he just received that acceptance letter the evening before. So he didn't even get to think about it for 24 hours, something he'd waited for years. He also was accepted to the University of Washington in their honors program, University of Colorado, and Oxford University in England. And the acceptance to Oxford, DJ did not know about because that letter arrived 2 weeks after we buried our boy. He was running track at Reed High School on Saturday. And he was in a mortuary on Tuesday. So what did this boy have to give? And what did this life have in store for him? Well, basically, it centered around a man sitting in a bar all afternoon, Tuesday, April 2nd, while DJ was sitting in his class in school. And his killer was having beers and decided he was going to share his irresponsibility with everybody else on the road that day. DJ drove, as you can see, a bright yellow and blue Jeep. And it was very heavy equipped. It had big roll bar and it was designed for off-road. So we felt he was safe in that car, but we'd not ever had to deal with a drunk driver. Never thought about it. Wasn't part of our life. Certainly wasn't part of our son's life. So DJ left our driveway Tuesday morning with his big grin. And we were so excited because that evening we were going to chat all about going away to school, to Notre Dame. 4:45 p.m. DJ was on the freeway, almost directly across from here on I-80, heading east, waiting to exit onto 395. The traffic was stopped, and DJ was the last in a line of cars. And I can just imagine Deej sitting there, had his music on and windows down and just thinking life is so good and spring break is coming up that next weekend and it's great. His killer left his place of drinking, driving down the freeway, I-80 going east, cutting across the lanes of traffic, endangering every single person that he met on the freeway that day, but encountered our son, who was stopped, waiting to exit, smashed into the back of DJ at 66 miles an hour. DJ was 0. The force of the impact so great, DJ blew up inside. In the blink of an eye, his precious life was gone. And in the blink of an eye, quite frankly, so was ours. DJ's Jeep had seatbelts in it that airline pilots wear, and he just couldn't survive a bomb on the freeway. So instead of chatting about going away to school and preparing for spring break, we're in a mortuary and we're picking out a casket. And we're just trying to figure out how to put one foot in front of the next, and how can this life be anything without him? And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is 12 years later. DJ would have turned 30 this year in February. And it does not get better. And time doesn't heal. You just learn to cover it up better. His older brother is going to have his first baby in September, and the first thing I thought of when our older son told us that they were expecting was he isn't going to get to know DJ as an uncle. And that's the way you base everything. Everything. There's pre-DJ and after DJ. And the reason that we're all in here, it's just incredibly ridiculous. He should be here just like we are, enjoying these beautiful summer days. When Deej left our driveway Tuesday morning, he had on his Notre Dame hat. I've kind of flattened it over the years, but this was on his head. And this is all that came home to us. This is what's left of DJ and his beautiful memories and a lovely legacy. But he should be here. And if we're going to take space on this earth, we darn well better do something good with it instead of trying to ruin each other. And it's such a simple solution. You just don't get behind a steering wheel. The end. And everybody knows that. It's not a surprise and it's not new news. And the ones that suffer, a beautiful 18-year-old boy, wonderful mama with 2 young children, Don, whose life has been severely altered, John, Michelle. These aren't things you just read about in a newspaper. This is all really real. Really, really real. So let's just do a good job together and make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
As far as the Victim Impact Panel itself, are these made up all of volunteers, or are there any paid staff?
There are a couple of paid staff that oversee the project, but the entire makeup of our panel with the speakers and the volunteers that are out front, completely voluntary. All the deputies volunteer their time. Majority of the highway patrol that we see that run the actual breath test van when we have it available, they are paid officers that are on shift.
And now if someone wants to help support the DUI task force, who do they get in touch with?
We are on the web. We have a website that can be searched through any of the search engines, but the actual website is the nndtf.org.
And so I assume that if people wanted to make donations, they could do that through that website.
Correct. And there are contacts available on that site.
And I assume if they wanted to volunteer also, they could do that through the website.
Yes, you can make contact through there. There's a phone number. If we're not in the office, you can leave a message and somebody will return a call. And we'd love to hear from people. Anybody that is interested in speaking too.
So do you have an office then? You mentioned that.
We have an office here in town, but it is not staffed because it is a volunteer organization. So it is a message machine and non-staffed office.
Now, if a person has, for example, a friend or a family member that has a problem with alcohol and or drugs, I mean, who do you recommend they go to get some help as far as that is concerned?
There's several organizations that, through our side with victims, can get some help. M.A.D. is a wonderful organization, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. On their website, they have links to several different counseling and self-help agencies. The state also offers on their website a group called the National Commission Against Drunk Driving, and they have a tremendous amount of resources also. That is on the state website.
State of Nevada
website. You can also contact local counseling through the Yellow Pages for drug and alcohol.
And, do you have any recommendations to anyone who's thinking about, I can drive my vehicle, I've only had a couple of drinks, I'm able to drive?
I love that story, and we hear it every single month. And one of the points that I drive home when I speak at the panel is the woman that hit my wife and I had one glass of wine 3 hours earlier. So we have the laws in place that say 0. The legal limit is 0.08, but if you're going to go out and have a cocktail, don't drive.
And, that is something I think we emphasized in the last show where we talked about getting the DUI, the effects on your insurance alone, the costs that you will pay. You could have driven a limousine many times from the bar or from the restaurant back home for the cost you pay just in the insurance alone. And that's the easy part when you compare it to the fact of like what has happened to you and to others as a result of drunk drivers. I mean, that's something that you can never get back, that part of your life. 27 surgeries, your wife 9. I mean, those are things that the time that you've had to spend, the pain you've had to suffer can never come back. And the message out there to everyone is don't drink and drive. Let someone be a designated driver, or take the cab, take the limo, take something else, but just don't drink and drive.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the costs of it, the average cost of a first-time DUI is $5,000 to $7,000. The average cost of a cab ride is $40. So it's quite a difference. And there are so many programs that are out there with free bus rides and the cab companies helping out, and the Tipsy Tow program. There's just no excuse for driving intoxicated.
What is the Tipsy Tow program? I've never heard of that one.
Tipsy Tow program is a program that is not very well known, and several of the tow companies have gotten together to discuss ways that they could help. And they will come out and take you and your car home. No law enforcement, no DUI. You call them, they come pick you up, and they take you home.
Well, that's good. Are they listed somewhere in the phone book, or is it something, how do you find out about that? Like I said, that's something new to me.
I'm trying to get the actual list of who's involved in it, but call the tow companies and ask them if they are participants in the Tipsy Tow program.
And I assume you're looking forward to moving to the Lawler Events Center in light of the fact that, the bad part of that is that you have to move at all because there isn't enough room to accommodate anybody, but at least the good part is that you won't have to have special sessions because you'll have enough room to accommodate everybody. And I think that's the good and bad of the situation.
Correct. Our first panel in October of 1990 had 20 people in it, and that included all of the media and all of the convicted offenders. And now we are turning so many people away. It's staggering to see the amount of increase just in the last 4 years that I've been on the panel, how many more people we're seeing and how much of an impact our extra efforts are having on the community. And I'm not looking forward to moving to UNR, but unfortunately that's where we are at this point. We have such an increase in the epidemic of driving under the influence that we have to have a larger venue. So hopefully we can get in there and relieve a little bit of the strain on our volunteers so that we don't have to do 2 or 3 panels per month.
And that's good. So there have been times then you had to actually do that many, 3?
We also do a juvenile panel, and that's done quarterly. So if we have the regular panel and then an overflow the following week and the juvenile panel, we have 3 panels.
I didn't realize there was a juvenile panel because the city attorney's office doesn't deal with juvenile crimes. So there is one then for those who are under the age of 18?
Correct. It is held at the Jan Evans Juvenile Facility and done quarterly.
And how many juveniles do you see at a typical victim impact panel?
Average is probably 16 for both boys and girls, so a total of about 30 to 35.
And these are all juveniles under the age of 18?
Correct.
And because once you're 18, you're in the adult system, even if you're still in high school, and you're handled through the adult courts.
Correct.
So that should be a concern to the community, just even thinking that quarterly you have that many juveniles get caught drinking and driving. That doesn't even count the adults between 18 and 21 who are not supposed to drink. So.
Absolutely. And some of the things that we're seeing are just staggering when you see the age of the offenders. This is a unfortunate offense that covers all the boundaries, but we're seeing more and more young people. College kids seem to be the biggest number in our audience.
Well, Mr. Hartman, I want to thank you for participating in this and telling us your story and telling us about the Victim Impact Panel. I hope that if anything comes out of this, the thing that'll come out of this is that people will think about drinking and driving. Again, take the cab, take the limo home, have a designated driver, learn something from the pain that you and your wife have had to suffer and others have had to suffer as a result of drunk drivers. I hope that's the message that will come out of this. And I thank everybody who's watched Reno Periscope, and I hope that this has been informational to you. Thank you.